Hello, friends. Good morning. Happy Friday. Happy belated St. Patrick's Day to all of those of you who celebrated in whatever way you celebrated. Happy spring equinox and Ostara this weekend to those of you who celebrate like myself. And welcome back to another episode of Elaborations with E. I'm your host, Ava, here to be your guide and your best friend on this spiritual journey. And here on the podcast, we discuss real growth, real alignment, and what it actually looks like to step into your power without losing yourself to the process. So today's episode is going to be a little deep, but in a very grounded and practical way. Because I want to talk about manifestation, mindset, and spirituality in a way that actually makes sense and is congruent to real life. So again, kind of piggybacking off of some previous episodes, we're not just going to be talking about the aesthetic Pinterest board version of manifestation. We're not going to be talking about what you might see on TikTok. We're going to be talking about something real. Because something that I've been reflecting on recently with myself, especially while reading some of my favorite books, including Dr. Joe Dispenza's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself and Jen Sincero's You Are a Badass at Making Money, is that a lot of us aren't actually struggling to manifest the lives that we want because we don't know enough. We're simply struggling because in some way, shape, or form, we are still giving our power away. We are still saying that the power to create our lives is outside of us. We're still looking at outside sources to give us the answers, to give us the information, to make stuff happen for us. So let's talk about that today. And the first thing that I want to get into is this idea of outsourcing your authority. And this is something that I don't believe that we discuss enough in spiritual spaces. Because we see it all the time. That many of us throughout different developmental periods in our lives go from one system to the next to the next. And sometimes it happens like this. We'll go from religion to manifestation to tarot and witchcraft and astrology to different teachers and coaches and creators. And somewhere along the way, we start looking outside of ourselves for the right way to do things. And we start asking, am I doing this correctly? Am I using the right technique? And more importantly, we ask ourselves, what would this person, this creator, this author, this speaker, this whatever, say about this? And how I'm doing it. And before we know it, we're not actually making decisions from within. We're waiting for confirmation from outside of ourselves. We're waiting for the go-ahead to do something a specific way. And that specific way is often somebody else's method of doing the same thing. And here's the truth. You can't step into your power while constantly asking for permission to have it. At some point, if you're really integrating manifestation principles, you have to bring that authority back to yourself. Because you can go on YouTube and listen to whoever you align with, who's talking about specific techniques and different ways of mastering the best version of yourself. And they might give you tips and tricks for morning routines, nighttime routines. They'll tell you to practice the state akin to sleep, which is a Neville Goddard technique of visualization as you're falling asleep. They'll tell you to repeat affirmations 10,000 times in a day. They'll tell you all of these different things that you can do. But you have to decide at some point, what do I believe? What feels aligned for me? And what kind of life am I consciously choosing and subconsciously choosing? And that doesn't mean that you never learn from anyone else, and that doesn't mean that you can't look at these techniques that other people are saying work and actually try them out for yourself. It just means that you stop putting the techniques and the people and the external things on this pedestal. You stop treating them as being the only way to do things. Because the moment that you do that, where you start treating these techniques and these principles and this way of being as the only way to be, you disconnect from your own voice. And that is the polar opposite of what you should be doing when you are actually trying to manifest your dream life. Because the whole point of manifesting your next level life is that it's coming from within. It's based off of what you desire, not what somebody else desires for you. And that leads me to the second point, which is probably my favorite. The tool is not the power. The mind is the power. The power to create your own aesthetic life, the power to create your dream life, to visualize and dream up your dream home, to visualize the perfect love coming into your life, to visualize the perfect amount of money coming into your life. The power comes from you. And I really want this to land because I think that this is where a lot of the confusion happens. And I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in other people that I've interacted with throughout my own journey. And I want to really talk about this. Because when we are going from one system to the next, and we are getting into things like the law of assumption, law of attraction, manifestation, whatever you want to call it, people can get caught up in visualization, affirmations, scripting, tarot, even to the point of watching however many general collective reading tarot readings on YouTube, which I've watched them before and I love them, and I have so many creators that I really do support. But people can get caught up in that, and they can get caught up in witchcraft and meditation and breath work and prayer and so many other things. Whether you're coming at it from a religious standpoint or you're coming at it from a spiritual standpoint or an eclectic standpoint, and even myself as a witch, like, we can get so caught up in the tools that we're using and the methods that we're using. And then the question becomes, which one works best? But I want to say with full confidence that that is actually the wrong question to be asking. Because I want to tell you the real kicker. All of these methods work. All of them. Visualizing your dream life works because what happens when you're visualizing is that you're using your five senses to interact with this kind of dreamlike state of having what it is that you desire. And when you're engaging your five senses, touch, smell, sight, taste, and sound, in that visualization, you're seeing yourself doing something like, for example, cooking in the kitchen with your partner, or going out to eat with your partner, and you're seeing it from a first-person point of view. And you're seeing the food you're eating, you're seeing holding their hand, you're seeing the whatever else is happening. You're in that room where you're signing a new contract for a new job that's going to get you 6 figures a year, and you can taste the coffee that you might be drinking. You feel yourself holding the pen to sign that contract. You feel the paper underneath your hand. You feel the chair beneath you and the desk in front of you, and you smell whatever's in the room. You know, you engage yourself in visualization. You really do. And affirmations can work because affirmations help you rewire your subconscious mind. Scripting works because scripting gets you very present in the act of writing out your goals and dreams and desires. Tarot is a way to help you understand your current energy and how your current energy is going to influence the most probable outcome that you will see happen for you. And yes, you can use tarot to kind of look into the more recent past. I'm not going to say it's going to really give you the distant past, depending on how far you want to look back. But tarot typically helps you look into the more recent past, depending on exactly what you're asking the tarot cards for, or what kind of guidance you're asking for. And as a tarot reader myself, you can use tarot to look into the past, but tarot helps you really understand what the current energy is that you are showing up with in your life and how it's going to affect different things that are going to start potentially happening for you. It's not a prediction tool. It's more of an energetic reading tool. That's what divination really is. You know, you're divining about what's actually happening and the current energy that is surrounding you, okay? And then, of course, meditation works because it gets you present in yourself and in your body, and it helps you to be present with your thoughts without necessarily grabbing hold of them. Breath work can help to retrain your nervous system, especially your vagus nerve, and it can help to calm you down from fight or flight responses. Breath work can be particularly helpful in helping you to get really into your body and focusing on your breath so that you can go from a place of breathing too rapidly to a place of breathing a little bit more steadily, and that can help you to calm down your nervous system. And then, of course, prayer works because prayer is kind of like setting intention. You are intending for something to happen, and you're putting that prayer out into the universe, and you're saying, I put it in the universe's hands. I put it in God's hands. I put it in Allah's hands. I put the outcome into something external from myself, but I believe that it will be handled. You know, you're still connecting to yourself when you are praying. You are still connecting to your belief in the power of prayer. You are still connecting to your belief in the power of your mindset. And you're simply allowing external energy to help utilize whatever means necessary to get you to that outcome, right? But even though all of these things can work, they are not the source of the power. They are simply the tools that help you to facilitate what it is that you're trying to bring about. They are just the ways of directing your focus, intentions, and beliefs. Because you can meditate while sitting in silence, but you can also meditate while you're walking. You can set an intention while pulling tarot cards, but you can also set an intention and pray while you're making your morning coffee. It's not about the form that you're using. It's not about whether or not you're religious or spiritual or into witchcraft and pagan or whatever it is that you are. It is about the consciousness behind it and the ability to tap into both the conscious and subconscious at the same time. And this is something that really connects to the idea of what is called the Pearl of Great Price, which is something that Neville Goddard spoke about. And the Pearl of Great Price is essentially the realization that your imagination, your awareness, and your inner world is the creative force. It's not the rituals that you do. It's not the aesthetic that you have. It's not the label that you're under. It's not any of the tools that you use. It is you. You are that pearl. Your ability to create the life that you desire comes from within. You can use all of these tools, and I do encourage you to use whatever tools float your boat. But you are the driving force behind whether or not this is going to work for you, based on your intentions, your actions, your beliefs, your thoughts, and your emotions. And once you actually understand that, not just intellectually, but in your body, you stop obsessing over doing things right. and you start focus on simply being intentional. Now, the third part, and this is where things get real, is congruence being the real magic. Congruence is the real magic. Because it's one thing to read all of the books, watch all of the videos, and say you believe in something. But it's another thing to actually live in alignment with those beliefs. Because if you are saying things, and words have power, we know that words have power, okay? And your words are driven by your thoughts and emotions. Your words are connected to your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. And your words and your emotions and your thoughts and beliefs are going to help you put into action what it is that you need to do, say, whatever, to get to that point where you've manifested your dream life. But if you're saying things like, I am worthy, I am abundant, I am stepping into my power, I am the highest version of myself, I love money and I'm grateful for money because I'm grateful for myself, money loves me because money is my best friend, or whatever other affirmations you're saying, or if you're manifesting love, for example, and you're saying, I am so worthy, my specific person sees my worth, and my specific person loves me, and all of these different affirmations that you can have around attracting your desired dream spouse or dream partner or whatever. But you're still tolerating disrespect, you're doubting every decision that you make, you're still abandoning yourself to keep the peace, you're still acting like the person that you were before, and you still have these habits that are actually bringing you out of alignment with the person that you want to be. There is a very loud dissonance there, and there is a very potent disconnect there. And you feel that disconnect. And your life is always going to reflect that disconnect, therefore. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're split in your mindset. You believe one thing while also simultaneously believing another. You're holding two truths at the same time. And something else that Neville Goddard said, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that you cannot serve one person while simultaneously serving the other. You cannot be that version of yourself if you're still holding on to the old version. You cannot serve two masters at the same time. I think that's kind of more of what he said. You cannot serve two masters at the same time. You have to choose just the one. And that master has to be you. So, going back to the whole thing of the pearl of great price, you have to sacrifice the old version of yourself, the version of yourself that's going to protect you from taking risks, the version of yourself that's going to continue to spend their money as soon as they get it on things that they don't need, the version of yourself that's going to continue surviving out here from the same mindset that actually is keeping you stuck. You have to sacrifice that version of yourself in order to be the best version of yourself that you know yourself to be. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to tell yourself, I want this so badly that I am willing to become the person who is deserving of that. And it's not going to come from this place of obsession. I want to say that loud and clear. It's not going to come from a place of obsession. It's going to come from a place of, I know that I have habits to change. I know that I have beliefs that are ingrained in me, but that I can choose to believe differently if I want to create the best version of my life. So real change happens when your beliefs, your actions, your words, and your standards begin to match. When you say, this is who I am now, and you actually move like that version of yourself, You make decisions that that version of yourself would make. You hold boundaries that that versions of yourself would have. You stop negotiating with the life you say you want and you actually start living it. And that is where things shift. Not necessarily overnight, but magically. And I say magically because it's going to feel miraculous. It's going to feel like an overnight shift. It's going to feel like something finally clicked for you because you're being consistent. And that brings me to my final point, because this is also where accountability comes in. Because spirituality without accountability turns into avoidance. If we recognize that we have to hold ourselves accountable for who we are being, what we are doing, our words, our thoughts, our actions. When we recognize that accountability is part of the equation, it helps us to understand ourselves. Because spirituality, again, without accountability turns into avoidance. And that avoidance is going to look like, well, I manifested this. Well, everything and everyone is me pushed out. Well, it's just my vibration. And we will tell ourselves that we deserve the bad things. And I want to tell you a little story. So at one point, I was part of a manifestation group. And a lot of what this manifestation group did focus on is the concept of everyone is you pushed out, or EIYPO, which is a Neville Goddard inspired concept and something that Neville Goddard himself did talk about. And that your concept of yourself will be reflected back to you by the people that you associate with, by the things that you do, by the environments that you put yourselves in. Okay? And that has a deep nugget of truth, because people can only treat you the way in which you feel that you deserve to be treated. Things can only happen to you if you believe that that is what you deserve. Yes, I do believe that, but it's also very nuanced, because if you're going to say to someone that they got sick with food poisoning because they specifically manifested that food poisoning, no. That's not okay. They may not have specifically manifested that food poisoning. In fact, they didn't specifically manifest that food poisoning, but they may have felt off about themselves that day, and something may have aligned with that, and they may have gotten food poisoning because of a choice that they made, even knowing that, they should have been a little bit more careful. But just because they should have been a little bit more careful doesn't mean that you get to tell them, oh, you manifested that food poisoning, you manifested that car wreck, you manifested someone treating you like shit. Like, can we please stop the gaslighting? But bottom line, you don't want to avoid anything, but you also don't want to say, I manifested the worst. I manifested everything. Everything and everyone is me pushed out. So if people are treating me like shit constantly, then that is my problem. In a way, yes, because if you're constantly believing that people are going to treat you like shit and that you're constantly going to get mocked for the things that you say and do, and you're not going to be given credit at work and all of these different things, then yeah. If you believe that about yourself, then yeah, you're going to see more of the same, because whatever you tell yourself, you experience. But at the same time, I don't want you to fall into this habit of being like, well, I manifested this, and I guess my life is just poo-poo because I manifested a poo-poo life. Honey, you can turn that poo-poo life around, okay? I am here to tell you that you can turn that around. And if you look at the things that are positive in your life, if you look at the things that you can be grateful for, you can turn things around almost instantaneously. You really can. And I also want to leave you with this truth. Sometimes people are going to treat you a certain way because they're jealous. They're jealous of your power. They're jealous of what you have. They're jealous that they can't live vicariously through you. I can give you an entire list of why they might be treating you that way because they're jealous of you. Don't let it get to you. Don't let it get to you. And we'll talk about that in another episode of like how you can learn to basically not give a fuck. But the thing that I want to get to that is going to be a little bit of like a jumping point for the not giving a fuck kind of energy is that the truth is in those concepts that yes, you manifest from your self-concept. And we'll talk about self-concept again in another episode as well, because I've spoken about self-concept, but I think we need a refresher course. But these concepts are not meant to remove responsibility. They're meant to give you agency over yourself. And there is a key difference with that. You can recognize your role in your own reality and still expect other people to treat you with respect. You can take ownership of your life without blaming yourself for everything that's ever happened to you and browbeating yourself about it. And that is balance. And that balance is where real improvement lives. So if you take anything away from this episode, let it be this. You don't need a new method. You don't need a picture-perfect routine. You don't need to become someone completely different from who you authentically are. You simply need to come back to yourself and you need to ask yourself, what does that authentically and genuinely look and feel like? You need to trust in your own mind, choose your own beliefs on purpose, and act in alignment with who you say you are. And stop giving your power to things and people that were never meant to hold it in the first place. That's all I have for you today. And as always, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Elaborations with E. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with a friend, tag me in your stories on Instagram, and of course, subscribe to the podcast and turn on your notifications so that you never miss an episode. You can also follow me on Instagram if you would like to keep in touch and stay in the loop about future episodes and so much more that is coming to the brand. You can find me on Instagram at elaborations.with.e. Again, that's elaborations.with.e, and I will even put that tag in the episode description, especially on YouTube. So, as always, take care, and I will see you again in the next episode. Bye for now, and have a lovely and fantastic weekend.